this. Okay.
Okay.
So wait.
Oh, why am I not going now? Oh, just manual. Okay. So I fall under our dietary department. And so included in dietary, we have our dining director. So she is like our top-notch lady there. She is also a registered dietitian, but she does not deal directly with the clients. She oversees more of the food service and the food service workers. Then we have 3 clinical dietitians, myself and 2 other ladies. We deal directly with the clients, and we do more of like the nutrition assessments. We write the diet orders. So depending on various disease states or the client's needs, we'll write diet orders based off of that. And then we have our cooks, our servers, and our drivers and our storekeepers. So we have a decentralized food service setup. So all of our food is made in one kitchen, and then we have 4 separate dining rooms. So the food is transported to the dining rooms. In the dining rooms, they will assemble the trays, and then they will transport the trays to the wards. So before COVID, everybody ate in their designated dining room. But since we've been in a pandemic, they don't want everybody intermingling that closely, especially during mealtime when masks are off. So everybody eats on their designated boards now. We follow a 4-week cycle menu. So our menu stays the same. It's just, something every week, and then on the 4th week, it starts back over again. We provide our clients with 3 meals per day, so breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then we also provide them with a nighttime snack. And then at the dietitian's discretion, we can prescribe additional snacks. So if we have a diabetic patient who's having low blood sugars in the afternoon, we can prescribe them an additional snack to make sure that their blood sugar stays stable. So things like that. And then clients have access to their own personal snacks. They can order snacks if they have their funds for it, or their families can send stuff in. Okay. So at Sorts, we have 2 buildings, Hoctor and Blair. I'm not going to go through all of this, but basically Hoctor is more of our high-risk patients. So they're more of the ones that are likely to have behavioral issues and cause more of like what we call codes. So, if a patient starts getting aggressive and security staff needs to intervene, that's more likely to happen at Hoctor. And then our Blair is more of our higher level patients. So things like that are less likely to happen, but doesn't mean they won't. Our Sorts facility is a maximum security facility. So you can see the barbed wire fence around it. We have a sally port, so you have 2 security checkpoints that you have to go through in order to enter into Sorts ground. And then I also want to say, because this will talk a little bit about in our apps as well, but our group homes are outside of the fence. So we have 2 Sorts patients that live in one of our group homes. They have access to unsupervised ground passes, so they can leave the group home and they can walk the grounds. They're able to hold jobs outside of the facility. So they have a lot more freedom, but they are still part of our treatment program. They are not discharged into the community yet. And then our apps building, our adult psychiatric services. So this was established in 1899, and our first patients were admitted in 1903. Back then, technology and medicine were clearly not as advanced as what we are now. So there were a lot of people. It says here that we had up to 1,000 patients at one point. But then in the mid-60s, when we started to learn more about mental health and develop more psychiatric medications and better treatment, we were able to improve the outcome of these mental illnesses and the patients that came into our facility. So now things are a lot better. And we also have a lot more access to mental health help in the community. So just because somebody has a mental health illness doesn't mean anymore that they have to be locked up in a facility, right? Like we have a lot more community resources. Okay, so for our apps program, we have it set up into 3 sections, basically. So we have our east side, which is going to be more of our lower functioning patients. These psychiatric, their mental illnesses can vary depending on what the person is dealing with. But these are going to be more people who just really don't know any better, like they can't control their behaviors because of their mental illness. On the west side, however, is going to be more, they have some psychiatric diagnosis, but a lot of them is more like antisocial personality, which basically means that they're going to do what they want, how they want it, and they don't really follow like social guidelines, okay? Like we know that like if we don't get our way, it's not acceptable to hit somebody. They know that, but they're just going to do it anyway. So those are the kind of, the treatments are based around what that person is dealing with. And then again, our group homes. So for the apps patients, we have group home 2 through 5, which again, they can go out on grounds passes, they can hold jobs outside of the facility. They have a lot more leniency, but they still have to follow their treatment program. Okay, so common conditions that we deal with and the medical nutrition therapy. So this is really what we're focusing on. I'm not going to go through all of these, but basically in our facility, the main focus is going to be on mental health. It is not going to be on nutrition and diet. Okay, so that creates a barrier for the dietitians when we're doing nutrition counseling and we're trying to write diet orders and provide education. But our job is still important. Okay, so if a person has, say, delusional thinking, and they're like, I am not going to eat meat because meat's going to kill me. Okay, because they have that thought in their head. Am I going to push for them to eat meat? No, because their mental health is more important than that. So there's other sources, you know, other ways that we can get protein into their diet. And so it's just kind of like creative thinking, like, okay, well, how can we still meet their nutrition needs if they're struggling in other areas of their treatment or their mental health? Okay. But also, the RDs are not responsible for their mental health treatment. Okay, we're not responsible for their behavioral issues. Our main job is just to make sure that they are on an appropriate diet and that we're providing education and nutrition counseling. Okay. So mental health is different from other facilities. So even though I am a clinical dietitian, it's not acute care like in a hospital. So it is considered long-term care. Our patients might stay with us a few months. We have patients that have been there since I was born, which was 30 years ago. So it just depends on their mental health, how well they're progressing in treatment, if they're progressing in treatment at all. And it also depends on court orders. Okay, so for example, our SORTS patients cannot get out unless a judge writes off on it and says, okay, we feel that you're safe to be released into the community.
So just to kind of explain, a lot of times their clients are people who have gone through the court system.
Yes.
So they've been arrested for something, and instead of sending them to prison, they are sent to this facility because the thinking is that they wouldn't have committed that crime had they not been mentally ill or something along their mental illness was really the underlying issue to why those crimes were committed.
Yes, so that's true for our apps patients. So for the psychiatric patients, like Dr. Lambert said, so majority of them are sent to us because they committed a crime and they went to court, and during court, it was ruled that they were either permanently incompetent to stand trial or they are not guilty by reason of insanity. So then they are sent to us for treatment. For SORTS, the SORTS patients have to serve their prison sentence and then they're sent to us. So you can imagine how frustrating that is for the sorts patients. But again, it's based on the court ruling. So if they go through and the judge says, okay, you've completed this treatment, you know, your social worker has written off on it, I believe that you're safe to live in the community, then they can be discharged. However, only 5 sorts patients have ever been discharged. So they're here for a long time. So anyway, some things that we need to be careful of with this population, both sorts and apps. We have to be really careful of boundary issues. So of course for sorts, you can imagine why. But for apps, a lot of these patients, you have to remember, they see the same people every day, all day long, right? Because they're in a locked facility. And yes, they can see their families, but they're limited on how many outside visitors they can have. So they kind of get like a little attached to certain people. So we have to be careful that the conversations that we're having are strictly diet and nutrition related, okay? A lot of them might have issues with food. Again, I brought up the example of like delusional thinking is a big one. And it kind of reflects a lot on the food. Safety, like that means our personal safety. We have to make sure we're keeping a distance between the patients. Of course, now it's a little easier with COVID because we have to say, okay, 6 feet apart, you know, but we have to make sure that we're keeping a safe distance. Like at sorts, you can never, ever, ever be alone with the patient. So things like that. We have to cater our counseling based on that person. So if they are so mentally ill that the only thing that I can figure out is whether or not they're eating, like not what they're eating, but are you eating, yes or no? That might be all the information that I can get from them. Okay, so again, not going to go through all of this, but it is a unique population, both sorts and apps again. So we're dealing with a lot at sorts of antisocial personality disorder and narcissism. So these guys are excellent at grooming, they're excellent manipulators, and we have to be really careful of that because it's easy, like, you know, when you've talked to somebody at apps and you've been screamed at for the last 15 minutes, and then you go and talk to somebody at sorts and they're perfectly pleasant and they just want to chat you up, you know, and they want to know how your day's going, then it's kind of a red flag. It's like, okay, what do you want? Like, what are you trying to get out of me? So we have to be really careful to keep our conversations just based on nutrition and diet. And also when they're asking for things, we only say yes if what they're asking for is medically necessary. So if somebody is asking me for ice cream every single night, it's probably not medically necessary. However, if that person has very poor intake and has lost 20 pounds in a month, then maybe, okay? So kind of just depends on the situation. I've got to be careful about sharing personal information. These people do have contact to people on the outside. I don't want them knowing where I live, okay? And then when we're counseling, we have to be mindful of their education level. So are they capable of understanding what I'm saying? If they're, you know, illiterate, I'm not going to bring them a handout to read, things like that. Lack of motivation is huge because they're doing the same thing every day. So if I tell them, okay, well, let's take 15 minutes out of the day and get up and walk around, but then they also have the option of 15 minutes of TV time, chances are they're going to take TV time, okay? We have to try to keep a good rapport with them, especially at sorts. They hold on grudges a lot. And then limitations due to being in a controlled environment. So it's a locked facility. Both sorts and apps are locked facilities. So I can't say, okay, after your lunch break, go outside and walk for 15 minutes. Or I can't say, hey, maybe, you know, during gym class, you guys can like pick up the basketball and play basketball for a while. Like a lot of those things are not accessible to our patients because they're on such a schedule and they're limited on what they have access to. So again, we have to kind of get creative with our counseling and our education. Apps is very similar to sorts as far as like the limitations with these populations, but with sorts of, or with apps especially, we have to be very mindful of their mental illness. Because if their mental illness is causing a barrier to where they either cannot understand what I'm saying, or they just can't comprehend it, or they just cannot follow my recommendations because they're so wrapped up in their mental illness and things that are going on internally, that takes top priority over anything else at our facility, because that's what they're here for. They're here for their mental health. Okay, so the things that I do initial and annual assessments. So whenever somebody comes into our facility, I'll do an initial assessment. I'll get kind of like background information on them, their weight, their heights, their BMI, things like that. Any disease states that they have, I'll look at their labs, and then I'll form a diet plan for them based on that information. And then I'll call and talk to them about it, let them know, here's the diet that we put you on, this is why, and then here are maybe some things that we can work on, okay? Like, maybe, you know, you have high cholesterol, so let's maybe work on avoiding some of these foods or limiting some of these foods, and maybe like when you have the chance to exercise, let's get up and take a lap around the ward, things like that. Nutrition, counseling, and education. So if I get a consult or an email and someone says, hey, so-and-so has hypertension, can you talk to them, things like that. Quarterly progress notes, everybody gets charted on every 3 months. Okay, so every 3 months, I'm looking at, you know, my patients, and I'm looking at their labs, any weight changes. If I notice anything significant and I need to call and talk to them about it, if the nurse has emailed me and said, hey, this has happened, you know, things like that, then I'll follow up with them every 3 months. We don't do nutrition classes right now because of COVID, but we used to just do basic, like nutrition 101, and just very basic, like cooking classes, like how to boil an egg, how to cut up an apple, things like that. We do quality assurance reviews. So each month we will do a QA where we will either do like a meal round where we watch like the service, the meal service from start to finish. We'll do a tray audit where we will submit a diet order, and then they'll make the tray, and then we just make sure that it's correct, things like that. We'll do in-services, we have meetings, and then the biggest thing is that we are a member of the treatment team. So we're working closely with the nursing staff, the dietitians, the nursing staff, the psychiatrists, the medical doctors, social workers, and rehab services. All right, so I'll just run through these real quick. The things that we deal with the most, obesity is the biggest one. Now, I will say that, yes, lack of motivation is huge. A lot of our patients would rather lay in bed than get up and walk for 15 minutes. A lot of them will pass on their opportunities to go outside. We do have a nature trail, and they'll, you know, now that the weather's nice, they're able to go out on the nature trail. A lot of them just won't go. But a lot of the medications that are prescribed to our patients, a lot of the antipsychotic medications, one of the major side effects is weight gain. So that's something that we have to take into consideration. Like if the person is on an appropriate diet, if they are exercising, and if they're not eating a bunch of excess snacks, I'm not going to hound them about their weight, because chances are they're doing as much as they can. But lack of physical activity, we deal with a lot of type 2 diabetes, hyperlipidemia, hypertension, GERD, constipation. Again, the medications, poor intention. I had no idea how many people did not have teeth until I started working here. So, you know, we have to take that into consideration. Like, I'm not going to give somebody an apple if they can't bite into it, right? And then choke risks. This can be due to the poor dentition, dysphagia, or distractions during mealtime because they want to talk to their neighbor, or they want to talk to the nurse, or things like that. We do have choke precautions in place. This is actually a very huge thing working for the state. So there's like a whole list of protocols that have to go into place if somebody chokes. Okay. So I kind of touched on some of the limitations with their mental illnesses, but also the limitations. So we follow a cycle menu. The cycle menu is set by central office, and it's very high in fried foods, sodium, and carbohydrates. Obviously not ideal for somebody who's obese with hyperlipidemia and diabetes, right? So we got to try to work with what we've got. They don't have a lot of ability to go out and do extracurriculars. Communication, that's going to be anywhere that you go. But ultimately, so the medical doctors and the psychiatrists can overrule anything, and that includes the diet. So if I put somebody on, let's say, a consistent carbohydrate diet for diabetes, but it somehow might affect their treatment or their progress in their mental health, the psychiatrist can say, nope, we're going to keep them on a regular diet. So they really overrule everything, but they are good about communicating with us about that stuff. Okay, so best parts, practicing dietetics, obviously, that's what I went to school for. It's what I'm passionate about, helping the clients. I get state benefits because I am a state employee, so paid holidays, pension, retirement, lots of good things. My schedule is very flexible, so we do everything pretty much on a monthly basis. So if one day, like, I'm not feeling good and I just want to stay in my office and just chart all day long and not talk to anybody, I have the flexibility to do that. And then my coworkers are really awesome. Nope, that's cool.
Stop. Okay. All right. We're going to shift gears here, and then I'm going to let you guys ask them both questions. Oh no, I want to stop share. Okay. So now we have Gloria. She is talk about transition here. A little bit different is the dietitian with Jackson R2 School. So why don't you tell them about your job? What do you do? And then I'm going to ask you guys both some questions about school and stuff like that. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Gloria.
Sounds good. All right. That presentation was really interesting, but mine is very different. So I do work for the Jackson School District. This is my 4th year with them. And just a little bit about our district. So I cover our entire district, which includes 10 schools, 800 employees, and about 5,500 students. And that is pre-K all the way up to 12th grade. And so my job is kind of split into 2 parts, half food service and then half wellness, which I really enjoy because I get to use a lot of my education background. And that's kind of why I went into dietetics in the first place. I love to dabble in a lot of different things. So I feel like this job, I really get to do all parts of dietetics pretty much. So on the food service side, some of my duties include making the menu. That's my biggest job. So I make a menu for pre-K, K through 4, middle school, junior high, and then high school, and breakfast and lunch for all of those. And this is the challenge I have to meet is all the federal guidelines. So there's guidelines around calories, salt, all the different colors of the vegetables have to be included throughout the week, beans, all kinds of different points I have to hit with each menu for breakfast and lunch. And then, so those have to go out to our managers, and then we have managers in every school that help me kind of carry that out, because obviously I can't be in 10 schools at once. So along with the menu, I also do some recipe development. So I'm also in the kitchen quite a bit, creating new recipes and doing a lot of sampling with the kids to see what they're eating, what they're not eating, always trying to make it a little bit healthier while still getting them to eat, because obviously it's not worth it to be healthy if they're not going to actually eat it. So that has definitely been a big learning curve for me of what is this kindergartner going to actually eat. And it's very surprising sometimes that, they will eat this and not this. And then I also go out to the schools every lunch period. So that's why I'm on Zoom today, even though I'm just in Jackson. I have to be in the schools for lunch. And I like to see the food presentation too. That's a really big priority of mine, because again, like the food can be super healthy, but if the kids aren't going to eat it, then there's no point in serving it. So I like it to make sure it looks good. We all eat with our eyes, but definitely kids are very judgmental about what they're going to eat and what it looks like. So I like to watch the trays go out too. Again, with the federal guidelines, it also has to have a fruit or a vegetable on their tray, and then certain meal components. And so I like to be that second set of eyes to make sure that we're following that out at the school level too. Also with food service, I manage our allergies. So that's kind of nice. That dips me a tiny bit into like the clinical dietetic side, which is fun to use that part of my brain sometimes. So I'll manage all the allergies. I work really closely with our school nurses. And then any diabetic kids, I'll go through with them on like insulin dosages and stuff. And so that is something I manage monthly, of put out new menus and then also put out all of the nutritionals posted on our website and send those out to our school nurses so they can handle that with our diabetic kids and our allergy kids. For allergies, I have a lot, obviously, of peanut allergies, gluten allergies. I'm pretty lucky talking to a lot of other school dietitians. We don't have a ton, but I think it's probably just going to keep getting worse. So every year I've been here, we've gotten more allergies. So that can be kind of a struggle to see what kids we can help replace things with, and having to make it more personal while still serving thousands of kids a day. That's kind of the food service side. And then on the wellness side, probably more of my favorite side of my job. That also is kind of split into two. So I do student wellness and then also employee wellness. So for student wellness, I do a lot of nutrition education into the classroom. So typically I'll pick one school a month and go in and teach those classes. So since we have 10 schools, it kind of works out for each month of the school year. I'll go in and I personally have seen a really big need in teaching kids how to like cook and just try new foods and be familiar with foods, because I see that a lot of them are not getting that at home. And so that's kind of been my personal mission, to do that in the classrooms a lot. So we'll do a lot of just simple recipes that I'll demo. Pre-COVID, I would let them be really involved and help me out, but now it's just a lot of demoing. But simple things like smoothies or granola, or I'll bring in, a different food of every food group, and we'll just try different foods that they may not have been exposed to at home. And so that's mostly in the elementary, so K-4, but I will hit a lot of the like high school and middle school and junior high, like health classes or PE classes. They'll have me come in, and then also work with our sports teams too, just to give them kind of a nutrition overview at the start of their year. And then I'm also just available anytime for kind of counseling, and I get anywhere from these kids aren't eating enough, or they're eating too much, or how can they get protein needs or refuel. And so that's a lot of fun for me too, just to work with the athletes one-on-one, kind of taps into the counseling side. So all aspects of dietetics, it's really fun. So yeah, and then the nutrition education, I also just, I've built some good relationships with teachers here, so they know they can reach out, and if they're talking about agriculture, or if they're talking about something along the lines with food, then sometimes they'll bring me in as like a guest speaker. So that's been really fun too. And then also with the kids, we try to do some kind of wellness challenge or initiative with them, whether it be like a steps challenge, or let's see how many activity minutes we can do in a month, and try to make that kind of a competition. So just any kind of little competitions or games that we can try to help the kids. And then we also, kind of with food service and wellness, we have a National School Lunch Week and a National School Breakfast Week each year, and we kind of make those really big events in our schools. And so we'll do a customized menu, and then we'll also do some kind of nutrition challenge or something along with it. So I think that's most of my student wellness. And then the employee wellness, I also really enjoy just to mix up and speak to adults for a change. And so like I said, we've got 800 employees. I would say about probably 400 participate in our employee wellness program. And when I say employees, I'm talking teachers, custodians, lunch ladies, bus drivers, all our employees. And it's open to part-time, full-time, and retired employees. So obviously the idea is to kind of help our insurance, and less medical conditions will help our insurance. So we do open it to everyone. And it's a really cool program, I think pretty unique. Just talking to more people in the field, we have a little like wellness booklet that I hand out at the beginning of the year, and the entire program is based on like a point system. So employees they'll participate in different activities, whether that's preventative activities like getting a flu shot or going to the chiropractor, or wellness activities. So we'll do, similar to the students, we'll do challenges each month. So we'll do like a steps challenge. We also do different wellness. We'll do like a mental health challenge, some other challenges. We do we call it the Wow 6 challenge. So weeks of wellness. So that means for 6 weeks, each week is a different kind of wellness topic. So whether that's like sleep and cardio and strength training, all kinds of different like aspects of health and wellness. And so I like to turn most things into a competition, because I feel like our employees really enjoy that and they're more engaged that way. And so they will get points for like how many hours of sleep they got or how many cups of water they drank. And the buildings will compete against each other. So that one's a pretty popular one. But they'll get points for all of those challenges that they participate in. And then they can also get points for each month. I'll bring in a different health expert in the community. So whether that's another dietitian or a personal trainer or cardiologist, someone to talk about their area expertise in relating to wellness and health. And so they can get points for, normally they would come in person and talk, but lately we've been doing virtual videos. And so they'll get points for watching that. And then I also put out quarterly newsletters. So I'll write on just various topics. So they'll get points for reading that. So there's a lot of different types of activities they can participate in to get points. And I try to make it that way. So then it kind of hits all the areas of wellness, and then also hits everyone's kind of cup of tea with they want to do. So if they want to be competitive and do a challenge, or if they want to just sit in their office and watch a video or read an article, then they can get points for that. And so all these points add up to different levels of gift cards. So they can earn up to $100 of a gift card at the end of the year. So I'm just now getting all our books back. So we have about 150 employees earning their full $100 gift card, which is really fun, because to earn the whole gift card, you have to be pretty engaged and active into the wellness program. And so that's encouraging that we have at least 150 that are taking it very seriously and putting in the effort. So I really like it. It's a lot of fun, and again, kind of taps into a lot of areas of dietetics, and helps me get creative and kind of engage with, again, adults, since most of my time is spent with kids. It's a fun change. And then I think the last part of my job is I also have recently, the last couple of years, taken on our Power Pack program. And so this is, again, a lot of districts are doing it. Jackson's a little bit unique that we do everything in-house. So this program sends weekend meals to students that may not have enough food to cover the weekend. So our train of thought is we're feeding them throughout the whole week, breakfast and lunch. And so, you know, if they're not covered on the weekend, we kind of see that as our responsibility to cover that for them. So all of our funds for that is completely donated. So I do all the ordering of the food. I spend about $1,500 a week. And so it's a pretty expensive program, but it's completely funded by, we'll do different, I just put on a 5K, so we raise money through that. We get different donations from businesses. So it's really encouraging just to see the generosity of the community and kind of letting the community engage in it too. But we serve about 225 students every weekend. And so we have a warehouse in my office building in our basement. And so we have different foods, and it's all just shelf-stable foods that we get volunteers every week to come and do like an assembly line and pack the bags. And then those bags are sent home with our students every week. And so my job is to order the food, also try to kind of keep the menu as healthy as possible, but also making it shelf stable and making it things that kids can kind of eat or prepare on their own. So we're hoping that without any parent help, which a lot of these students are not getting parent help, that they can create it make it themselves and cook it themselves. So it's a lot of like easy mac and peanut butter crackers, fruit cups, vegetable cups, canned chicken noodle soup, things like that. So that is definitely a really rewarding and fulfilling part of my job. I kind of took that on as an extra in the last couple of years, and it's a lot of fun. And it's really nice. I've built a lot of community relationships, which has kind of helped with the food service and the wellness side. So it's all kind of all come full circle. So it's been really nice. But yeah, I think that is kind of a big overview summary of my job, what I do every day.
So you guys both have very different things. So they're both SEMO graduates. I don't know that I mentioned that. And Gloria did her internship at Missouri State, and Leah did hers here at Southeast. I think you're my last internship class, maybe. We had Joel. You had Joel. Okay, so I left right after you guys. Okay, you were Joel's first one. Yes. Okay. I knew it was somewhere in there. Yeah. Anyway, so along those lines, what are some things, like I've been asking all the guest speakers, and it doesn't matter who wants to go first. What are some things that you guys did to kind of help prepare for that internship? The matching is still there. It's a little different these days, but what are some things that you would encourage students to think about so most of them are sophomores, juniors-ish, that they should be doing now to kind of prepare for that. Who wants to go first? Go ahead.
I can go. Okay, so I have a little different background too. In case there's any student athletes, I was a track and cross country runner. So I remember I was very nervous for the matching process because I didn't have as much like volunteer and work experience as a lot of my classmates. So I know that personal statement in there helped me a lot, just to kind of say, these are my skills, and I don't, I'm lacking the volunteer and work experience, but this is kind of who I am in my leadership, I think. I know my internship director said she was really drawn to any forms of leadership I had taken, which I think is important as a dietitian. I think a lot of us kind of have to take control, and because we're the only dietitian on staff in most places. So yeah, I think the personal statement helped me a lot. And then in looking for an actual internship, Missouri State was kind of unique because we had a 6-week rotation that we got to design ourselves. And that was really attractive to me because I thought, okay, this is going to be 6 weeks of kind of like a job interview or an opportunity to prove myself. So I would say when you're looking for the internships, kind of really pay attention to what programs they offer, what their concentration is, and kind of align your interests into theirs as much as possible.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. That was, other than the location, that was one of the main reasons why I chose SEMO, was because SEMO's focus is on nutrition education, which is what I wanted to do. So that was a big reason that I chose SEMO. So that is definitely, like Gloria said, something to look at whenever you're considering internship options. As far as what I did to prepare for it, I also didn't have a lot of volunteer hours. I had a few. I did SDA, so we did a few things there. And then in the nutrition, in the community class, what's it called? Community nutrition class. You do a lot of things there too. So I definitely use that. I worked 2 jobs, so I made sure that I included like everything that I did for my jobs that could go into dietetics. So again, like Gloria said, leadership is a big thing, responsibility, time management, things like that. I would say one of the biggest things is to make sure you use absolutely everything. So even if you just volunteer for 1 hour, make sure you keep track of that. Use all of your job opportunities, use opportunities outside of, the classroom with, relationships with family or friends or whatever. Anything that you can possibly use, make sure you include that.
So how would you guys recommend, because we've got just a couple of minutes or a few minutes left, how would you guys recommend to prepare for the RD exam?
Oh,
So
gosh.
that's always a big thing too. I always like to ask because everybody has a different kind of story on how they did that. So how did you guys prepare, or what would you recommend to get ready for that? Because we all want to pass it the first time.
I'll let Gloria go first on that.
Okay. So it's funny because I always get SEMO interns in the spring. So I always get them right before they're about to graduate and take their test. So we talk about it quite a bit. But my internship, we were offered, I think it's called the Inman study guide. And so it's a really in-depth study guide. I remember it being kind of expensive, but it was totally worth it to me. I know a lot of us dietetic students are like extreme studiers. And so I spent I acted like it was my full-time job after my internship. And my situation was kind of weird because I had a job offer that I needed to pass my internship or my RD exam very quickly. So I spent like 40 hours a week just reading it and studying it. We also had CDs offered with our study guide. And so since I was in Springfield, I would travel back and forth to St. Louis quite a bit. And I would literally listen to the study guides on tape. I put it on my phone, so I'd listen to it while I was running. To me, that helps just have that audio. And I remember a lot of times during the RD exam, something would kind of click in my head, like, oh, I've heard that before. And so it would kind of trigger that. A little bit weird of a study technique, and it was definitely boring to listen to, but since I did it kind of on repeat so much, it did help a lot. But I don't know, I'm an extreme studier. I think a lot of us are. And so that just helped me a lot to just read over it and worked out and passed.
Yeah. So full disclosure, I did not pass my RD exam on the first try, but guess what? I still became a dietitian. So if it happens to you, it's okay. But the first time that I took the exam, I used the Eat Right prep from the academy, and it had good information, just not enough information to prepare for the exam. The second time that I took it, I used the Inman review as well. And I did the same thing. I would listen to the audio in my car as I was driving. And like Gloria said, it really is kind of a full-time thing after you get done with the internship and you're preparing for the exam. So I would study on my breaks at work. On my off days, I would use it as a work day, and I would study for about 8 hours a day. They provide the audio, and they provide flashcards, and they provide practice exams with the answers, of course, so that you can practice taking it. I just feel like the questions with the Inman review were worded a lot more similarly to how they're worded on the exam. So definitely second the Inman review if you can get that. It's worth it, I think.
I think that doing some kind of either review course or purchasing something is helpful because it does help organize your studying too. So I'm sure Inman probably had like food service and clinical and community nutrition, general nutrition. You're gonna all forget all your general nutrition stuff because by the time you're a senior, you've spent a whole year of medical nutrition therapy and you can't remember, what vitamin causes pellagra that you learned back in FN 235 or Nutrition 1. So it helps to bring all that stuff back to the front because and even in your internship, you're using more probably medical nutrition therapy than just general nutrition. So I think that helps. So that's good advice on that. Any last closing thoughts that you guys have for the student? Do you guys have any questions? You guys think of anything? If you have something later, shoot me an email and I'll email them and we can answer it. But closing thoughts?
I think my best advice I got at the beginning of my internship and even like the closing of at SEMO undergrad, I think was just say yes to every opportunity. And me, I'm very introverted and kind of reserved. And so that's not usually my approach to life, but I definitely took that into my internship and just any opportunity to, yes, I'll do this on a Saturday. Yes, I'll teach this class on a whim, and I grew a ton over that year of my internship. And I think it really helped me land a
Gloria
job.
used to be so quiet.
Yes, I still am.
She was so quiet.
Yes, but
I don't think you would know that if you listening to her today, but yeah.
Yeah, so I grew a ton during that internship and just say yes to everything and get out of your comfort zone because that's the only way you're going to grow.
Yeah. Leah?
Yeah, what Dr. Lambert said about like, you tend to forget like those basic things. So make sure like you are reviewing those even throughout your courses, because it's just going to make it easier to recall that information. Because even now at my job, I still have to like go back and look up, things that are just like the basic information that you learn in nutrition assessment class. So I would say review that information as you're going.
Look at you two. Just kidding.
All of my notes.
Yeah, keep everything.
Yeah.
Like be
not a
a
bad idea.
hoarder, because you're gonna need all of that information eventually, promise.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We appreciate you. And we enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.